Now 7 and
Ready, my friend? Good. You ready? I'm going to start this meeting with a pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which is one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for coming. Announcements. I have one here. I'd like to thank a donor who wishes to remain anonymous. A generous donation of the scoreboard, the recreational field. So I got a feeling some people may know who that person is here, but I have to say thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I want to put the direction of the meeting tonight. We're going to have 3 presentations. The first one's going to be from the tree committee. The next one is going to be from Zach Miller. And then a third one from the Agricultural Trust. We'll do a few other quick things and then we'll get to new business. I think what it is there, I don't know, 30 and 32 fire bond and hot bills we'll talk about. So we'll get right to those after these presentations. Terry, are you ready to kick us off?
Yeah.
I just want one other thing.
Everyone.
Once we get through the presentations and we talk about the fire barn and Odd Fellows, if you'd like to have a public comment and come, you'd have to come up to the podium so people can hear you on the live stream on YouTube. Just state your name and you got 3 minutes to speak. That's how we'll do it tonight. So Sue, you have something to talk about for the tree committee.
I do. So we are planning a fairly large planting of trees at Veterans Field. And so we did present this plan to the rec committee. It was approved in January 13th. But then Pat said, why don't you come to the town council since it is a fairly large planting and let them know what you're doing. And so we're here. Can everybody hear me okay? Not really. Okay. How about now? Oh, does this
Do that, but the problem is the speakers in the room are still not correctly connected. So you're just gonna have to, the speakers here, I mean, the microphones are for live streaming.
Okay, gotcha. All right, here we go. All right, so the Little Compton Tree Committee was formed in 1979 by an act of the town council. We don't actually receive any town, taxpayer money. What we do is a fundraising letter each year, and the town's residents are very generous in funding us. This project is also being funded in part by a grant from the Little Compton Garden Club, who had a flower show and awarded some of that flower show money to us. So our mission is to preserve and maintain our public trees, to plant trees in Little Compton, and to educate the public. So Veterans Field is an area that, as well as Adamsville Field, these are 2 places that we do tree work. We've planted trees. But obviously, we overlap with the rec committee since these are recreational areas. So we wanted to coordinate with them, particularly since they have the tennis court rehab happening. So, we, like I said, we made our presentation January 13th. They gave us some really good input, advised our plan a bit, and now we're here tonight. So the reason that we're focusing on Veterans Field is that it could really use shade. Like there's some benches in Veterans Field that are kind of out in the sun. The playground area has plastic slides that get really hot. And also some of the trees there are not doing so well. So we want to do successional planning. Instead of just waiting for a tree to die and replacing it, we want to be proactive. And we know it's extremely important that we plant in areas that won't affect the recreational use, or town events, like, because this is a heavily used space. So this is just an overview to get you oriented to what, we all know what Veterans Field looks like, but here's an aerial view. Meeting House Lane runs west to east, and the gravel road that is off of Meeting House Lane is a targeted area. And then the playground is also another targeted area. So when we go to the next slide,
Uh-oh. Oh, dear. Sorry. I think,
let's see. Okay, so the slide shows done.
well, I don't know why, but, because I had downloaded it earlier, but maybe that's not working because it was so early. My apologies.
All right, don't worry. We got this. Okay, so basically. Oh, there it is. Good. Okay.
Can't see from here.
Yeah, so if you click on the orange one at the bottom, we should be good.
What do you mean?
Oh, to the left, to the left.
Left.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so the orange areas are the areas targeted for planting. So just kind of keep those in mind. Those are also areas where there are a lot of benches. So if we go to the next one.
Oh, sorry. Oh, it's not very good at this, evidently. How's that?
Good, that's great. So again, that gravel road off of Meeting House Lane, if you pull into it and you look at the trees on the left, you'll see that there are a few healthy ones. There's a fernleaf beech and a horse chestnut that are doing fairly well. But there are 3 struggling trees. 2 of them are sycamore maples. We have a lot of sycamore maples in town, and they're kind of aging out. And then the crimson maple on the right is also not doing so well. So if we head to the next slide.
Didn't think that was gonna work, but that's okay.
Boy, this is making me feel really good.
I can help out.
Okay.
All right, so that's a good picture. So again, if you check out the trees that are there, those are the sycamore maples that are not doing so well. They've been topped, which is not something you like to do to a tree, but it had to happen to relieve some of the weight. The trees actually don't look that bad in the summer when they leaf out, but they're not doing well. There's some rot. Like Jason keeps a close eye on them because to make sure that they're not a safety hazard. But the plan is to keep those there, plant, and then as the new plantings mature, to eventually take those trees out. And then the playground, it looks like an oasis, but as you can see, like it's just out there in the hot sun. So this is the picture. So look for the yellow triangles. The X means that trouble tree is going to be removed. The orange one, that was input from the rec committee who said, just wait on that planting until after the courts are done. Then we did have a tree in the former long jump pit. Does anybody remember when it was long jump pit? Okay, that we took out because that was in left field. So using the rec committee's input, this is our current plan. We actually went there this morning and we staked the locations. So if you want to have like an actual head down there, there's pink tape on the stakes and it says the type of tree that we're considering putting there. All of the trees will be native. sense, to give us a sense of place, but also resiliency during these changing times. And what else can you add? Yeah, I think that's the plan. And then our next steps are to check in with DigSafe because we know that there's a lot of underground sort of plumbing, drainage, electrical. Then we can, once we have our final shopping list, we can begin the shopping for the trees, plant them, and monitor their health. So 10 trees, it is a fairly large tree planting, so it's going to take time for us to find the right trees and to get them in, but we wanted to let you know what we were doing. And we particularly wanted to thank the townspeople for providing us with the funds to do this project.
So to make this official, do you want a vote from the town council that we approve this?
I planned on it. Yep.
Well, I was asking Sue.
So, yeah, so basically, like for us, it's always a little unclear what we need to do in terms of authorizations. So, if you feel that that is needed, that would be great.
Well, then you'll have the town's backing behind you.
That's
To make a motion to plant up to 11 trees where the tree committee feels is appropriate.
I'll second the motion. Now we're in discussion. Does anyone want to comment? This is the second time I saw it. And it was just as good as the first time I saw it. I want to thank the tree committee for what they do. They do an excellent job. Jason Burchard and everybody involved has just been outstanding. And I think this is a great project. Is there any questions for Sue? I have one here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm John LaRue. I was delighted to give a little input on the type of tree in relation to playground, because there are regulations with overhead canopies that go over the playground a certain height. And we have to take a look at the tree system, because when you put a tree really close to a playground that has wood chips, roots migrate up. So we have to try to find a tree that's called deep rooting. And we have to find one that's got a trunk that grows up kind of high before envelopes. And I'm more than delighted to help you on that.
Yeah, so
Thank you for the safety regulations for the playground.
all right, we'll get your contact info.
So that's John LaRue. He's our new member of the Recreation Committee and one of the 4 experts in the country, 5 experts in the country on playgrounds. If anybody wants to challenge John
Okay.
on playgrounds.
On Monday, I'll have to check my calendar. And morning? Yeah. Oh, Mohegan Sun. I can't believe we got our playground.
No, don't worry, we'll totally, we didn't know you were on the rec committee, so that's awesome. We'll totally be connecting with you, because we want to coordinate with the rec committee this whole time.
Any questions for the tree committee? Thank you, Sue.
I think.
And we have a motion on the table. All in favor? None opposed? Thank you. There's no objections. I'd like to move up new business 2. I'm not seeing any. New business 2. With our friend Zach Miller in the back. Request establishing an exploratory committee, planning and restoration of the town commons. Presentation included. This is Zach Miller here. And I think Carol has some slides that she's gonna show.
This shows correctly.
And we're gonna go back to the TV.
Thank you, Councilman McHugh. Thank you to the, and thank you everybody for showing up tonight. My name is Zachary Miller. My friends call me Coach. And my wife calls me Fallible. And that is the gist of what I'm here to present. You know what, Carol, do me a favor. Take that presentation down and go to the last slide. Second to last slide, sorry. Okay. Yesterday, Councilman Chairman McHugh, an hour of his very difficult time, and I presented this 34-page presentation to him. And he let me get going, but he definitely asked a lot of questions, challenged me. And I kept trying to remind him, Patrick, this is not a proposal. This is a palimpsest of hundreds of ideas garnered from, structures, property lines, uses, entities, people, laws. All of this is just different solutions, different ideas, different scenarios. No proposal. Couldn't pick out one idea that was the presentation. It was not about that. And I also said, these ideas are mine in response to all of these outside comments, influences, questions, etc. And I said, none of them are right, because not one person can work themselves in a vacuum and come up with a community solution. It takes everybody's voice to build consensus and to build good quality, civil-minded ideas. And an hour after spending time with Pat, he seemed to be very supportive of my endeavor here with this presentation. I was invited to go sit with Bob Mushin in his sunroom, overlooking the fields behind the building that we're here sitting in. And he afforded me the same hour of his time and asked me lots of questions. We found new ideas of just my delivery of these images, these thoughts. Ones that I hadn't brought and ones that he hadn't brought. We found them together by talking and sharing ideas. This is like 3 o'clock. I've been talking about this. There's 2 people in this room, maybe a third, who has seen this presentation. And the third person that I showed it to was at the coffee house in the morning. We were just like, I was like, you know what I'm doing? And she's like, oh, let's see. Renee Welch, thank you for your time this week. I hadn't gotten home last night after all of this talking. Hadn't gotten home, started making dinner before my phone blows up. My texts are blowing up. And I'm like inundated with, you cannot show this presentation on that. There's too many volatile ideas. The images are going to separate people into their factions and, positions before communication can actually. Yeah. Are there any graphic designers, illustrators, deal with imagery on a regular basis? Yeah. Right? The power of imagery to spark people's response was just overwhelming. So let's try this different. Okay. Imagine 1900. position yourself in between where the school will be built and where A1 will be built. You've got a fork in the road, majestic, asymmetrical spire turret Methodist church. No longer here. Down the dirt road in the distance, you can see Wilbur's General Store. You can see Oddfellows Hall to your left, maybe the roof of the community center. But a curious structure in the foreground is what Marjorie O'Toole described to me as the Hearst House. Hearst. It was the structure that the community shared was housed. Eventually, everybody in town used that community resource and taxes. The next image, if I was sharing them with you, because they are meant to be imagined, is a satellite image of an aerial image, not a satellite, aerial image of the 1938 image of the Commons. Why 1938? You're not supposed to be showing this. Last one. We're all about getting together at a big table and talking, having a good time. 1938 hurricane, right? Big damage with the shores. The Commons is pretty sparse. You've got the Methodist Church. This is 1938. You've got the inklings of a school being built. You have Oddfellows Hall, Community Center, the two buildings that become the ones that we're in now, and the Baptist Church. And the Hearst House is no longer where it was in the 1900s image. It has been moved back to the back of the property. The stables servicing the Hearst House and everybody who would ride their horse and buggy into town, no longer there. In 1938, new cars. We've gone from dirt roads to somewhat more reinforced dirt roads. No asphalt yet. But the Hearst House, of all the stable structures, et cetera, has found a secondary location on the Oddfellows Hall property. Move ahead to 1963. The school has started to annex property and have wings built onto it. And is obviously becoming a real presence in the Commons. There's a playground now established between the school and Oddfellows Hall. And the Hearst House has moved once again, somewhere in between the front of the road, like it is there, and the back of the property. And it's had some structures added. And it's obviously become what we have known to be the fireball. The annex to the vault annex town hall has been added. And really, it's all about how big the school has got. 1980s image is not really very good. Who knew? If they couldn't fly playing with a decent camera, 1980s. Sure, there's others. But you can see the school, again, adding a lower school wing. But other than that, the Commons stayed pretty static. 2007, No, did I say it's 2000? Yeah, 1980, 2007. Things have really changed in town. The playground has kind of gone from a tennis court to a playground to a kind of rough shod playground, not really defined. The town hall has created what architecturally can be referred to as a hyphen that connects this building to that building, and I imagine makes everything be well between groups of interest. The basketball courts don't show up until somewhere after 2007 to the current satellite imagery. Photovoltaics have been put on the roof of the school. But again, you've got the Oddfellows Hall, Fire Barn, and the community center as your core, the basketball court. And there's a curious postcard from around the same time this postcard was taken of Oddfellows Hall. Doesn't have the 10, 20 stairs going up to the single door, or the double doors and no windows. There's only one entry level that the Makers Club enters it now. And the second floor elevation has 5 windows in it. Right now, the gable end of the Oddfellows Hall has solid doors. So the experience of looking at those two structures is really interesting. I'll step back and mention that I have worked with the National Park Service's standards for rehabilitation for preserving historic structures. I've personally placed historic Pequapug in on the National Register for Historic Places in Westerly. After that laborious process, I hired a professional to do it for the Stonehouse. There are ways to renovate historic structures that are being mindful of their current future uses, their past uses, their past configurations. On the Stonehouse, we replicated the missing historic cupola. We replicated the wraparound 2-level porches, all from photographs. There was very little historic fabric structures. So I think this is to say there's a lot of voices that can inform good quality communal decisions and restoration, rehabilitation, and planning. I have another image here that's standing between the community center and the Oddfellows Hall. And you would probably all be very surprised that you can draw a magic level line between those two buildings, match up the first floor of the community center and the first floor of the hall, about 1 inch. So imagine that. There's a magic line that connects the buildings. I don't know if it's, by accident or when they were built, they planned on making sure that that the two buildings had relationships to the ground that were similar.
I think the people that built the pyramids probably.
There is a Masonic background in that, isn't there? So again, anything that I described here that I provide a vision for is mine and mine alone. And by the nature of my wife's understanding of me, it's likely wrong. We, when we had discussions with Todd and Jenny Moore, when they were ready to sell the stone house, they were doing so because there was a lot of deferred maintenance. The state fire marshal had said your egress and life safety access are not compliant with code. You're a commercial operation. You really need a fire sprinkler system where you need to improve these life safety deficiencies. And they were done. We successfully found deep investment groups to throw tons of money at it. Wasn't successful for me. I don't think it was successful for the next owner, but like good restaurants, usually the second or third restaurateur actually makes it work. I think they're doing a good job here now. We have a similar situation with the community center and Oddfellows Hall, that the state has come to claim their priorities. That is, improve fire and life safety, improve ADA access, add sprinkler system where you will not be able to operate. Now, there are ways to put this off, and there's ways to work around not having a sprinkler system. But where's the Methodist Church? Sprinkler systems are often like a nasty word and nasty idea. I graduated from architecture at Rhode Island School of Design. I am a project executive for a construction company. And we have clients that are not required to put sprinkler systems in their homes, but from a cost benefit standpoint and a life safety standpoint, and these are wealthy clients, they actually choose to put sprinkler systems in their own homes. This is just for me to say that sprinkler systems aren't a dirty word. They definitely help save lives, but they also help save historic structures. That's all to be said. There's a lot of capital improvements, deferred maintenance between the two buildings that will bankrupt a lot of small towns. Not going to happen here, though. So, I was talking with Bob, and as I talked with Patrick, there's all these shared needs and resources and structures and ADA access and fire and life safety that these two buildings that share this magic datum really could benefit from sharing. So imagine a magic box that's set back from the primary historic facade, that follows the National Park Service's standards for rehabilitation, that marries convenient wheelchair and American disabilities access to the building at the same plane, that share a new elevator, because I don't know, anybody ridden in that community center elevator? It's a little spooky. Provides a new fireproof, fire hardened egress stair shared reservoir for a sprinkler system. But more importantly, its ability to expand within the existing footprint for offices, for horizontal communication, and for a larger kitchen. Because I understand that the community center serves 10,000 meals a year, and they are still needing to find a way to serve them. So imagine this magic box that follows along that imaginary magic line and pull together all of these needs that these historic buildings really are going to require being addressed individually or together. I mean, how would you imagine getting handicap access via ramps to the first floor of the Oddsfeld Hall independent? It's probably like 300 feet.
Register with the National Historic Building,
Say it again.
that be registered as a.
The entire commons is designated as a historic district. So, but you could choose not to have the stairs to go back to the original, 1900s version of Oddfellows Hall. These are just concepts being thrown out for deliberation by more thoughtful, more dedicated resources that the community can put together. We're not talking about uses. We're talking about how these buildings relate to each other and their needs and improvements for the longevity. Because again, good civil and architectural planning will outlast us all. If we make one move that eliminates the future aspects of better ideas, those options are increasingly harder to explore and integrate. Does everybody know about Lot A? Lot A is an undeveloped piece of property. It's 0.62 acres, a little bit more than a half an acre. We all probably have a sense of how much a half an acre is. So it's a little bit larger than a half acre. It's kind of isolated behind the basketball court, between the parking lot and the Oddfellows lot. It's undeveloped because it was sort of incorporated into the pool property A-1, lot A-1. Killing me, Carol.
That's not gonna look like.
Be careful here. These can cause disruption in our presentation.
That won't,
Here we go.
that won't cause a problem.
Area A merged with lot 8-1, 0.6 acres, is undeveloped. So there are a lot of ideas for lot A. One, and I can't argue is not a bad idea, is leave lot A alone. Poor little lot A has found itself a nice little quiet spot. Doesn't want to be bothered. Let it alone. It abuts the pond slot, which is under the Ag Trust. So it's in a good, safe spot right now. The trick is we've thrown out this idea of this magic box that maybe eliminates some asphalt in front of the historic construction, community center and Oddfellows Hall. But how do you get to that magic box? Well, some people have started poking at lot A or at area A and said, that's really good potential parking spaces. That's a big nut. You start putting parking way back there. I don't even know how you get, let's imagine parking is back there.
Who's saying that though?
I did. Say that I did.
Well,
Well, the other than me.
What we're saying.
There's conversations about it. I mean, I'm thinking about things. So I'm just thinking of things, and laying them down. So let's say that there's a magic parking spot in area A. Nobody's really excited about that. But there's a magic point along the property line running north-south on the eastern side of lot A that is just coincidentally at that same height elevation as that magic line connecting Phillips Hall and the communities. That means that you could enter the community center and Oddfellows Hall by avoiding all those steps in the front of Oddfellows Hall on the first floor, all at the same level by this so parking event. Through another magic little canal. Is it a good idea? I don't know. Not for me to say. Part of what we're coming here tonight to ask is, are there people in the community or entities in the community that have time and resources and focus to discuss these concepts? Let's go one step further. Let's say there's a little interesting part here where that red line of the Ponce property nicks the corner of the lower school building at that red line. And there's also a little white line that separates the business district from the residential district. If you connect that white line from area A to where it crosses the red line and said that business district may want to be a part of the school property, not the ag trust, because it's more business than residential. Again, you can blame me for this thought, but it all of a sudden creates this little bit of relief between the property line where of the school and the building itself, that fire and life safety vehicles could get to backside of the school. Overton Mann School is unique in that it does not have circumferential fire and life safety access. All sides of the building. Is this important? Again, not my decision. The fire department, police department, probably much better entities for weighing in whether or not that's an important thing to have in a lower and middle school building. So we've created this magic box that connects these two historic structures following the National Park Service standards for rehabilitation. Serves multiple purposes, but creates a larger, more accessible, better used, better organized, allowing bigger kitchen services. Again, I'm not drawing that stuff. That's for somebody else. If it's worth doing. And then all of a sudden we've created this parking lot with maybe fire and life safety access to the backside of the school so that access can be provided. How do you get to that parking lot that's been created? Maybe with permeable pavers so that we're not putting more asphalt and undisturbed farmland. Well, since Carol's got it up here, I don't have to make you imagine it. We're no longer in the analog world, are we? As you can see, the basketball court occupies everything. The little section between the basketball court and the school is less than your preferred 38 feet, minimum for two-way traffic with some pedestrian relief, and certainly not any greenery. So you can't get regular, and nor would you want to get two-way traffic in between the kids playing basketball and the kids going to school. That doesn't make sense. We've already established that the historic Hearst House is what I would deem, but I'm not the one to make that call. Maybe the historic commission in town to decide whether that was a contributing building in the fabric of the historic commons district. So maybe you don't move that. Coincidentally enough, the not the town charter, what is it again? The
Comp plan.
comprehensive plan. I always forget that name, but in the comprehensive plan, all of these structures are identified as protected, except the poor little basketball court. But that basketball court is valued by a lot of people in town. But how would you get to that, landlocked parking lot to provide access for ADA and ease of egress, and maybe some teacher parking, maybe some EV charging stations, maybe fire and life safety access around the school? Well, let's just imagine Zach said, how about we spend $250,000 now to move the basketball court? Shame on Zach. That's a terrible idea. Where would it go? Any ideas? Well, I've got one. A terrible idea.
Point of order,
Sure, go ahead.
Larry Anderson, point of order, I appreciate the vision being expressed here. The item agenda on the agenda, as I read it, is request establishing an exploratory committee for the planning and restoration of the town common. Is that what this discussion is about? And if not,
I'm with you.
what is it about? I mean, I think as a matter of efficiency of the meeting,
I can stop now.
things. What is the point? I guess. Thank you. What is the point of the presentation, please? What is the proposal, please?
The agenda item, by the way,
Sorry.
I actually agree with Mr. Anderson on this, except that the end, just his presentation included. I think he's on the presentation included, but the main point is to establish a committee for this. So I think that's the point you're trying to.
Would you like to wrap up your presentation?
I'd be happy to wrap up. I know I appreciate everybody's time. I apologize for trying to be thorough in my explanation of the myriad ideas that don't just come from me, aren't my decision, have been posed in some form or way by members of the community that I've spoken with. But I think the whole point is this is the first time that we are talking as a community about some significant development decisions for some significant architectural structures in the common. And this is just a good example of how many moving parts there are to making good community-based decisions that will outlast all of us and not put in jeopardy the character and history, as well as the future of. And I think it would be good to establish a guiding committee with key members as a committee Maybe it's it's definitely the school. But again, I say definite, not my decision to make. I maybe think that it could be the school. Community center's right there. The historic business surely involved. The housing trust is definitely in the mix. And all of this bumps up and wrestles with ag trust property. There's probably more entities that could be included in this discussion. But I hope that the council would consider, as we move forward in taking on some significant decisions as a community, having an advisory voice built up of members and groups in the community to look at all this stuff that could happen and not happen, and be put on real imagery and scales and drawings and traffic flows and studies, and see what comes of it before decisions are made that can't be unmade. So thank you for your time. I apologize for running a little long and being maybe a little verbose. There's a whole presentation that the town council has been provided. I imagine it's public record. I'll get my great little narrative to go along with it though.
So thank you for your vision and what you think what should happen. I think it's important, and I love creative people. This is my understanding. This presentation was given to the school administration last Friday. Isn't that right?
This presentation was not. No.
Was there a presentation?
And to talk about how if that lot A was expanded to teacher parking and parking for overflow off the commons, how would considerations for access to it affect the school's activity for pickup, drop off, bus, all of that stuff. And they had a very, very clear, concise response to a couple of options. And again, not for me to comment on what was best or not, but yes, they have commented on how they would see best accessing that lot A if it were to be developed to park.
Yeah, so I don't know if everyone knows, but our chief of police, Chief Raines, has asked our IDOT take a traffic study of all of this, of Pikes Peak and the Commons, which he's already done. They've come down, they've done it. The engineers are working on it. And Chief Raines has told me that will be available in 2 weeks. Right. So we're going to find out what the state thinks we should do with our parking. And I think then we'll move forward with that parking lot decision on what to do. So that might be something we're interested in. But I appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Yeah, and hopefully more entities will weigh into this conversation than just me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, department approval of minutes. Go ahead. Absolutely. Go ahead. Sure. Yeah. Yes, I'm going to do the address. Don McNaught. She has just.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I think.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Mooney with the Little Compton Community Center. I prepared a letter for the town council tonight in regards to the topic of revitalizing the town commons. Bear with. There's a lot of questions to ask, and it's meant to provoke some thoughts and conversations. Dear Honorable Town Council, I want to start by thanking Councilwoman Victoria Talbot for her tireless work, initiative, and enthusiasm to address much needed housing and capital improvement challenges within our town. Victoria, while we have agreed to disagree more than we may care to admit over the course of a few short months, I hope you understand that I have the utmost respect for your vision and drive to improve our community, and I look forward to those things coming to fruition. So thank you for all you're doing. As I've grown to better understand our community and its stakeholders, I've imagined various iterations of a community campus here on the town common, which would allow us to improve, centralize, and increase service provision of our many wonderful nonprofits who often operate in a tangential and sometimes duplicative fashion providing the same or very similar services for the benefit of our community. While I neither claim to have the answers to the following questions, nor do I expect responses from anyone, I want to give you insight into my thought process with the intention of provoking meaningful conversations about how we can repurpose the buildings on our town common for the benefit of the greater community while giving reverence to the history of the town common. For the sake of this exercise, I will be referring to 30 commons as the fire barn, 32 commons as the Oddfellows Hall, and 34 commons as a community center. For better or for worse, welcome to the inner workings of my brain. If there is a senior center on the first level of the Oddfellows Hall, does it make sense for stay at home or the wellness center to be located above it? Could there be room for offices or co-working spaces for groups like the Ag Trust, LC 350, or the town's senior services director within that building? If the wellness center relocated to the commons, could the food bank occupy the rear of the fire barn? If the food bank were in the rear of the fire barn, could the front portion of the building be designed to include a community space where the LC makers could have storage for their equipment and to implement their programming? Could it also accommodate groups like the PTO, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Republican Town Committee, and the Oddfellows? If the wellness center and the food bank were to move to the commons, is there an opportunity to provide public housing in their current building on East Main Road, which is equipped with a 4-bedroom septic and 4,500 square feet of living space, approximately 500 less square feet than the fire barn and the wellness center combined, returning residences to a residential zone? Much like the community center's origin, could the town enter into long-term leases at the fire barn and the Oddfellows Hall with local nonprofit organizations, providing the opportunity for those organizations to implement capital improvement campaigns and to apply to foundations such as the Champlin Foundation, the Van Buren Foundation, and the 1776 Foundation for capital improvements and historic preservation grant funding, diverting the cost of the needed improvements from taxpayers and expanding the use of the buildings to be inclusive of a larger population of our town? Does the town have the appetite to establish historic district zoning, making us eligible for additional grant funding from the Rhode Island Historical Preservation and Heritage Commission, which includes activities such as planning and preservation? To alleviate parking and traffic woes on the town common, could the basketball court be moved to where the parking lot is proposed to be, giving access to parking behind the fire barn and in the current footprint of the basketball court? Is it possible to create an annex between the community center and the Oddfellows Hall, allowing us to expand our kitchen, eliminating the wait list for senior lunch? If we don't have an annex added now, how else would we be able to expand to meet the demands of our senior lunch program in the future? If we have residents living next door to the community center, how do we proactively ensure that the residents, the developer, and the managers of those units understand our operations prior to us signing on the dotted line? For example, for 9 consecutive weeks, 26 children are joyfully and boisterously playing outside during summer camp. And in the evening, on the same day, we host our summer concert series on Wednesday nights in August, where 50 to 60 people gather on our back patio to enjoy live music, dancing, and community. I want to make it abundantly clear that these are my thoughts. And while I have spoken to the majority of these stakeholders about these concepts, I am not claiming their endorsement from their leadership, their board, or their donors. I can, however, confirm that no one has vehemently opposed the idea of a community campus here on the Commons. I don't have the probability of anything like this coming to fruition. I don't have numbers and I don't have figures to support how this would happen, but I have an idea, and sometimes all it takes is a crazy idea to spark something wonderful. I implore the town council and the townspeople to engage in meaningful conversations to address macro level issues from a macro level approach. There is much work to be done, And if we do it intentionally, we can and will benefit the greater community. In closing, my request to the town council is that you contract with a planning firm to engage in this exercise, ensuring a professional, thoughtful, yet neutral approach to help us revitalize and repurpose the town common in a way that benefits the greater community. Thank you.
Can you send that to Carol so she can send it out to the rest of the council members? Thank you.
All right, Bob McNaughton, is he still here?
Oh, wait.
Thank you, Amy.
You guys want to stand up for 15 seconds before I start? Good evening and thank you for having me. I'm Don McNaughton, 551 West Main Road, and I chair the Ag Trust.
Oh, I don't think that go away. Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
How did I get this before? Oh, I know.
You put it in present. That's. There we go. Okay. Thank you, Carol. Last spring, the town council asked Trust to engage legal counsel for the purposes of exploring multi-purpose acquisitions. And that was on May 24th, I believe, of 2024. And shortly thereafter, there was a leadership change at the trust, and I became chair. It took me a little bit of time to get my feet on the ground, and then we had to research, interview, and hire advisory counsel. And since then, we've kept her fairly busy. So today, I am here to discuss the directive from last May that you gave the trust. And in addition, I'm here to respond to the motion that Councilwoman Talbot made on February 20th, again to the trust. And I'm also here to refamiliarize you with the trust's mission, its work. I just want you to know that I view this as an ongoing conversation to take place over future town council meetings. Frankly, we have not done a great job at communicating with the public. And so while we won't answer probably all of your questions tonight that might be out there, please consider this a start that is long overdue. Thank you, Sharon. So going back to the last town council meeting, you may remember that Carter Wilkie read a statement and the town council passed a motion made by Victoria asking for, in my words, improved transparency and community education from the trust. And the directive from the motion from the town council asked for information to be provided by the trust upon each acquisition relating to the rationale and criteria and how the property will be managed, whether it be managed for agriculture, open space, recreation, or something. The trust also asked for semi-annual report. Sorry, the council also asked for semi-annual reports and an annual strategic plan that includes the scoring criteria and methodology used when considering properties for acquisition. I just want to know that we think this is a great idea and we'll be implementing it pronto. In fact, hold on. In fact, when we come back next time, we will take you through our scoring criteria and methodology. Coincidentally, the trust just released, as of I think today, our fiscal year 24 annual report. I have forwarded it to Carol to forward to each of you. It will be in the Secana Times, I hope next week. It'll be posted on our website. And so you can look forward to reading our fiscal year 24 annual report. Within that annual report, and as requested by the motion of the town council last meeting, this is just a rundown of the acquisitions that we made in fiscal year 24. First, 164 John Dyer Road, 26 acres, We purchased it in fee. I will explain what that means in a little bit. Seller was Beverly Anarumo. Price is $550,000, and we will manage that for recreation. He also accepted a donation of 33 acres from Roger and Gail Green that will be appended to the Simmons Mill management area. That was a donation, and again, that will be managed for recreation. We purchased the fee on 140 West Main Road, 9 acres from Charles Almy for $600,000. And that is currently under agriculture. There's 3 acres of agriculture, an agricultural field on West Main Road there. And finally, we purchased we purchased an easement on 2 acres at 350 Old Harbor Road, $150,000 managed for recreation. So let me back up this for a second and talk about the ag trust enabling legislation. And I've done this before, but I feel it's helpful for everyone to continue to get peeks at the enabling legislation from time to time. The ag trust was established in 1986 with the primary purpose of acquiring development rights for agriculture. The ag trust was created to purchase the right to develop property from the owners, but the owners maintain ownership of the property. And so development rights purchase allow the farmer, in this case, to extract value, cash from the ag trust, reinvestment in the farm, and or for life purposes while continuing to farm the property. Ag trust holds in perpetuity the right to be extinguished, and so the property will not be developed, but will be maintained in farming for perpetuity. And so the trust was designed to help Little Compton farmers keep their homes, keep their farms, business for themselves and for future generations. And this way, they would not need to sell their property to raise needed money for life's purposes. Secondarily, the trust was formed to purchase property, meaning we own it, the ag trust would own it, for either ag, open space, eco services such as water quality, as well as recreation. Next slide. So here, I'm just going to take you through.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Which one is you?
I won't be as successful as Sue if I can't get them.
Take over to.
How come the sock puppets?
There we go.
Okay. So okay.
Go right ahead.
Where's the slideshow?
Go right ahead. Yes, but I couldn't figure out the next knob to hit.
Where's the mouse?
Oh, you were there. Hang on.
Hold
There
on.
you go.
Slideshow?
I don't know what the next one is you hit.
Hold on.
Yes, you get this.
Okay, hold
That's the
on,
way they've got it.
hold on. Where is your? Now we gotta switch screens.
He's in dangerous territory right now.
No. Oh, no.
All right, Gary?
Working on it. Let me continue.
Hold on.
So I was going to show you an example of the Jackson property in which we bought the development rights in 2022. It's a 60-acre farm, 20 acres of hayfield, 14 acres of upland forest, 14 acres of forested swamp.
Because I think they can see that.
And by purchasing the development rights, the property stays in the family.
IT has
The
it.
ag business continues. There's watershed protection in the forested areas. And there's a 3-acre homestead with the current home, farm infrastructure, and the ability to add additional housing. And the sale of the development rights offers financial flexibility to the family.
There you go. Is that a good slide?
That's a fine slide. Can we go beyond that or,
Is that where you're at now?
you know?
Switch from this screen to that screen. Either we'll do an insert.
Well, I know how to move them. But they've got it split for a different reason for other things that happen here. That's why I don't want to mess with them. But I
I
know,
don't blame you.
too. Touchy. They can see it fine this way.
Alan, why don't you go to the next slide? Can you just click on the next slide? Well, again, I took you through that the primary purpose of the Ag Trust is to purchase development rights to allow, in my example, farmers to continue farming while extracting cash from the property. Of the total 2,287 acres that the trust has protected since its beginning in 1986, about 1,500 acres, or 2/3 of the total acreage protected, is protected through development rights or conservation easements, for all intents and purposes, mechanism of protecting property. Community members continue to own and pay taxes on that 1,500 acres. The trust, in addition, owns outright, in other words, in fee, about 1/3 of the 2,287 acres, or 772 acres. And that's owned by the trust. And of that land, there's 163 acres of ag land in that 772 acres, and all of it is leased to farmers. So the trust owns 772 acres on behalf of the sellers who chose to conserve their land with the Ag Trust. It's an obligation in perpetuity. And to suggest another use of trust-owned property other than conservation not be in the best interest of the trust and its relationship with the families we've worked with and hope to work with in the future. I want to address this question because I've heard it somewhat frequently. Have we saved enough land in town? My answer is relatively simple. There are 2,300 acres of ag land in Little Compton. Just 45% of them have been conserved to date. 770 acres of the 1,057 have been preserved by the Ag Trust. The other 300 acres have been preserved by other organizations, including the state of Rhode Island. So there remain a total of 1,284 acres of unprotected ag land, which says to me there is more work to be done. And since becoming chair, the trust has been focused on a variety of operational elements: stewardship requirements, communication planning, finance, strategy, staffing, time as a public body of volunteers. To ensure that farming remains an economic driver here in Little Compton, I believe we need to move our work into housing, succession planning for farmers, and how one now makes a living from being a farmer. And that will take expertise and thinking. But without the land to support farming, there is no need to do all those other things. So in my opinion, our job continues to do in saving agricultural land. Next slide. Back on May 23rd, I mentioned the director from the town council. Directive read to seek advice from legal counsel, expert in land and real estate acquisitions, as to the trust's authority within the bounds of its enabling legislation to participate in what you call multi-purpose acquisitions. Now, I'm going to define what participation in multi-purpose acquisitions means to me. And that to me says a transaction that results in the acquisition of both conserved land and land to be used for other purposes, not supportive of the Ag Trust's mission. We went out and after identifying our counsel, we put this question to her. She did her research, and that research included the review of Superior Court's action considering the acquisition that resulted in Dennis Talbot's 5 acres, the Ag Trust enabling legislation. Counsel's opinion, in 3 parts. First, we, her law firm, have evaluated the ability of the trust to participate in real property transactions beyond that of a usual purchaser for value. Think of that as the Ag Trust buying a property in fee, meaning a simple purchase, if you will. For the Talbot transaction,
Council's opinion says that the agreement among the parties was structured in accordance with the trust and naming legislation, which empowers the trust to undertake additional necessary actions consistent with its obligation. To explain that further, she says, therefore, the trust may participate in different kinds of transactions so long as they are acting within their charge to conserve real and agricultural property.
So Don, my understanding of that is, and I don't know if the numbers are out, but as you call it, the Talbot, property, it was 26 acres. Was it 26, 24, 23?
It was originally 31 acres.
31 acres, and it was sliced off 6 acres for the Talbot deal?
4.9, call it 5.
0.9.
Yeah.
And the decision of the court or the judge said you were abiding by your enabling legislation because you conserved all of that other land, less the 4 point something acres.
That's correct.
And so you could cut that off and do other things with it. So the question is, if you wanted to cut off 16 acres and you bought 31, would the judge have the same opinion? And the answer, when I asked that to the attorney, was, I don't know. What's your risk aversion there? What do you, how far do you want to bring it?
Yeah. So
You understood from that?
Well, I'll say this, Patrick, that when the Superior Court handed down its action, it did so within a couple of different characteristics specific to that transaction. And they said that given our enabling legislation and given that we were pursuing our mission of conserving of conserving land, and given the circumstances surrounding that specific transaction, we acted within our bounds as stated in the enabling legislation. So the Superior Court only acted upon that one transaction, but based on that decision, I think that our counsel concludes that yes, we were acting within our charge to conserve real and agricultural property, and therefore it was
Because the percentage of the land you were conserving was high, in his opinion, or high enough for him to decide that you were acting in your enabling legislation.
I don't know if
I interpreted it.
I don't know if the percentage of the ultimate parcel would have changed the Superior Court's opinion or not. That would be something we'd have to suggest to counsel and see what they say.
So if you would have cut off 29 acres to Talbot and just conserved one, you think the judge would have said that you were in your enabling legislation?
Well, I just want to caution you. I'm not quite sure you're characterizing properly what actually happened, but I'm going to go with it just for the sake of the discussion. I don't know the answer to that, and that would require counsel to.
Did you have anything to say about this, solicitor?
Well, I thought the case was actually like a so-called friendly lawsuit, where there wasn't. I understand where the judge handed down his decision, but it wasn't actually like an argued and contested case.
That's correct.
This is basically what's known as a confession of judgment. In other words, they went in basically saying, we need to have this so that we can clear title here. And that was the purpose of filing the lawsuit. So I don't think you can make any conclusions on what happened in that particular case because it wasn't contested. But I don't think you can say the Superior Court's going to do this if it's a certain amount of percentages.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Okay, so Carol, can we go one more? So given our counsel's opinion and the Superior Court's judgment, I want to talk about how the trust will proceed going forward. The trustees have reaffirmed our commitment to primarily pursue conservation of agricultural lands, larger agricultural properties that can help ensure that farming will remain an economic driver in Compton. At the same time, we will strive to include housing opportunities for farmers in each agricultural acquisition, restricting a building envelope for continued affordability whenever possible. Now, specific to the Ag Trust participation in multi-purpose acquisitions, I've reviewed for you what council and what the Superior Court have said. Now I'm going to talk about what the Ag Trust will do as a result of hearing those opinions. The trust will continue to be landowner driven. And what that means is here in Little Compton, all of available land is privately owned, and private landowners make decisions best for their families. And people who approach the Ag Trust to sell their land are looking to conserve their land. They aren't coming to the trust for development opportunities. They could have sold their land for development, but they have approached the Ag Trust because they chose to conserve. And the trust will not proactively seek to turn those conservation sellers who approach us to conserve their land, we're going to try to turn them into developers. Having said that, if an opportunity to participate in a multi-purpose acquisition comes before us, the trust will absolutely evaluate the ultimate conservation value of the transaction and will consider it accordingly. The trust wants to help within the constraints of our mission. So when presented with a transaction that we could be helpful in, that may also result in multi-purposes, please bring them to us and we will be happy to evaluate them. And that's my prepared comments for today.
I just have a question. Can you define recreation in your enabling legislation?
Let me offer a couple of examples and then maybe that'll help. We have parcels around town that either already host trails or we envision they will be hosting trails. We purchased the
Almy Creek.
Thank you. We purchased Almy Creek, 5 acres on the creek just in the northern end of Compton Cliffs. We purchased that for access to the shore, and thus far, I guess, worked out relatively well. So trails, access to shoreline, those are. Say again.
Hunting.
Thank you. The trust currently has 15 properties in town that are hunted by Little Compton residents and others. And in fact, we have launched a hunting committee to hopefully try to expand the hunting opportunities in town, either by including more hunters on those 15 properties or actually adding to the list of properties that are open. In the hunting committee, I want to thank publicly Lynn Bousseau, David Osborne, Cam Brouillet, Cheryl. Linda, got her. Bill McIntosh, David Osborne. So they've all been incredibly helpful as we launch our hunting.
I would imagine buildings is not included.
I would imagine, I'm sorry.
Buildings,
What about them?
are they included in if they're a recreation building, would you include that as an under your umbrella of definition of recreation?
I think we would evaluate it going forward. I do want to say that for all the land that we have acquired in fee, as I said before, the understanding from the seller and the Ag Trust when that property was acquired was for conservation. We will not be entertaining the idea of putting buildings or otherwise using land other than for conservation that has been previously acquired. However, if there is an opportunity for a multi-purpose acquisition in the future, whereby the trust is acquiring land, and in addition, there is another driving force for the acquisition of additional land, again, we will happy to look at that.
And lastly, I know it's getting late. To how the trust will proceed.
Yeah.
You say we will strive to include housing opportunities for farmers.
Yes.
Each agricultural acquisition, building all the local affordability. So I think, that's nice that says that there, but I think more work needs to be done specifically vetting that out. And my thought is sitting here that maybe you work with the planning board and maybe come back with more specifics to the council for that. I would have to make a motion for that. I don't know what my colleagues think of that issue. I don't know.
Well, let me just say this, Patrick. Again, I want to go back to when the Ag Trust is conducting a transaction with property owners. The property owner is largely in control, and it depends upon what their wishes are for the property. Having said that, we agree with you that we need to do a better job at trying to find creative ways to get farmer housing in the hands of farmers, and that is high on my wish list.
Do you think collaboration with the planning board would be helpful?
Well, very fortunately, the chair of the planning board serves on the Ag Trust, which makes that sort of an easy thing to do.
I'm very happy to hear that you're gonna try to get farm housing on agricultural land, and I understand what you're saying. If somebody's gonna give up agricultural land and sell it to you in trade, then you might be able to say, well, if you really want this to stay agricultural, would it be okay to have a farmer
Yes.
build a farmhouse on it? Because I've been advocating with that, and I'm so happy that you're looking into that now, because that's what we need. Fine and good to save agricultural land, but if you can't get the farmers to farm it, it's not really worth it.
Yeah.
No, so, I mean, I'm sounding like a broken record because you've heard that many times. So, but I'm very pleased to hear that is one of your goals now.
Well, I think there's merit to that perspective, Gary. So, it's hard to argue when it makes so much sense.
Like,
It's not to say it's not going to be necessarily easy in all cases. But, that's
You could always put it, if somebody says, I'm gonna sell this for agricultural land.
Yeah.
You could say to them, that's wonderful. But to actually keep it agricultural land would be so helpful if we could have a farmer come in and say that he wants to build a barn on it to store his equipment. He may be from out of town.
Yeah.
But what's prohibiting him from growing anything on that property is he doesn't have his equipment there. Okay, so I'm glad that you're looking into that very
I
much.
think we need to be much more flexible
Right.
in our approach to make sure that the farmland that we save actually.
It's farm type. Thank you.
yeah, I agree with you, concur with you. Do you think we need a vote that they work with the planning board and come back with us with some specifics on this?
I think you got Mike Steers, or he was in the audience. I think he's chairman of the planning board, and I think Don's done a good job taking over the Ag Trust, and I think those two could collaborate on these aspects. And Mike can take it back to the planning board and say, well, this is what we think's doing. I don't know if you need a vote for that. Would that be correct? I mean, we don't want to prohibit them.
And look, I appreciate your interest, Patrick. I'm not sure we need a vote, but that's
I would suggest that perhaps we have them return in some number of months.
Yeah.
And in that return, we look for amplification on some of the suggestions made, rather than mandate they take a particular course of action. It'd be helpful if, for example, we did this quarterly and the Ag Trust came to us on a quarterly basis.
that was my intent, Bob.
Okay.
What's standing up?
I was just saying that Don and I are working together on this subject, and we've had lots of conversations. We agree.
I appreciate that. Was there another hand here? Yep. You have to go to the podium. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Don, you'll have to come back. There'll be another question for you.
Carter Wilkie. First, I just want to thank you, Don, for your work on it. I was really encouraged by everything you said tonight. I agree with everything. I love it. I think it's a terrific first step you're taking. I appreciate the commitment that agriculture is the primary purpose of the Agricultural Conservancy Trust. And I believe that with your leadership, we can expect to see more ag out of the Ag Trust this year and in the years to come. So I really appreciate that. I think this is a terrific positive step. Two concerns that I have that I'd like you to keep in mind.
Yeah.
The first, just in response to what you said, I think in the past, the Ag Trust has been perhaps too landover driven. And I respect a real estate transaction. Every transaction requires both a willing buyer and a willing seller, and that property owners who engage with the trust have to be willing to engage on their own terms, and their interests have to coincide with your interests and the interests of the town. But that's not to say that the Ag Trust should just be reactionary and wait for people to knock on your door, because I think too often that's happened in the past. And then you're left with just like playing Monopoly board where you roll the dice and you see how much money you got in your hand and you buy the property. And then you wind up with a portfolio that may not fully reflect the purpose and mission of the Ag Trust, which is agriculture. So I think the correction for that, so that you don't have a vacuum, is that the work of the trust not only has to be driven by the Enabling Act, but also driven by the town's own vision of what the town wants to be. And that means that the town's comprehensive plan needs to include a section on what are we going to do as a town to preserve working farms and our working landscape. If we're going to preserve rural character, which there are plenty of references to rural character in the comprehensive plan, why does it not have a section on agriculture that could guide the trust in making the acquisition decisions that it does? And secondly, another point you made tonight, which I think is a really important step, is the acknowledgement that farmland without a farmer is not farmland. And simply preserving the land trust does not preserve a working landscape, does not preserve working farms. If a protected farm is owned by a farm family and the next generation doesn't want to farm it, that doesn't guarantee that we're going to remain a coastal farming community. There are a number of things you can do. There are best practices of other land trusts operating in the North Fork of Long Island, in Hudson Valley, Vermont, Maine. I think we can learn from those. And if we don't do that, then I think we run the risk of just waiting for landowners to knock on the door, ask for a check, and then you've turned a transfer tax into transferring taxes to property owners to preserve or subsidize rural estates for people who aren't farmers. And I don't think that was the original intent of the Enabling Act that voters passed 40 years ago. So I'm very interested in this. And as a new member of the planning board, to help this along, I'd be willing to volunteer and serve as a volunteer on the Ag Trust Steering Strategy Planning Committee. I know Victoria Talbot has served in that, but there are a lot of good things we can do to get farmers on farmland in town, and I'm willing to be a partner and work with you on that if you'll have. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate all of them. And I agree, farmland without farmers is not farmland. And I also, I mentioned before that we've been spending a lot of time on strategy. Part of that conversation around strategy is exactly that, having the vision of not waiting for applications to come in the front door, but rather trying to encourage them to happen. So
In fact, for against 2020 per transaction, proactive.
Thank you, sir. If you want to come up to speak, come on up. Go ahead, Victoria.
I was waiting to go to say.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much for coming
Yeah.
so quickly to the request for.
Well, I feel like, you know, the first directive was offered up in May of last year. I feel I've been feeling delinquent, not coming earlier, but you know, it takes some time to get your feet under you. And so anyway,
I know something about that.
yes.
So thank you so much for coming. It really is great to have that transparency and this conversation ongoing. I have just a couple things, speaking of the strategy, which is one Carter mentioned, I served briefly on your strategic planning subcommittee.
Yep.
And one of the things that I talked a lot about there, and I still have talked to different trust members about, is that the scoring criteria, which I know that you're going to come back to us with. Because as much as I'm really glad to see you say that you strive to include housing opportunities, if it doesn't translate into how are we assessing these properties, then you can strive all day, but you have to have some rubber meeting the road. So I'm looking forward to seeing the criteria for that, and I hope to see that in there somehow in some way. And then the other piece is I had someone in the town council office today asking me a question about the Ag Trust that I couldn't answer. So you're here.
Right here I am.
At home listening or in the office.
I may not be able to answer. Fire.
And that is, so they're a farmer and they didn't know how do they go about leasing land from the Ag Trust to farm. They've actually seen a parcel that they're interested in, think could be a good fit. And I said, I don't know how you do that, so I'll ask.
So when we do advertise leases that come up for lease,
I'm not sure we do a great job at advertising leases. And in fact, that's one of the, I think, upgrades that we'll be looking to do is more broadly and probably, hopefully, with a little higher visibility, offer the leases for bid. But it's a bidding process. We typically haven't received that many bids when we put out land for lease, but that's sort of how it happens.
And is that sort of, is any property that we see when we go to the website and look at all the different plots that you own and fee, are any one of those available potentially to farm if they're not actively being farmed now, if they're,
Well,
able to hold the crop, et cetera?
As I mentioned before, all the land that is agricultural that is in our fee acreage is currently being farmed.
Okay.
So, but the leases have tended to be 3 or 5 year leases. So we're looking at perhaps suggesting that leases be longer, which will allow farmers to invest more in longer term leases than rather short term leases. But right now, they come up every 3, 4, 5 years. So that's.
Thank you. That's helpful.
You have a question for Don or a comment on the Ag Trust? Go ahead. Yeah.
If I know what you're correct, I think the transfer of the property, the owner to the Ag Trust has a third component, is a third leg. And that is person, all of us actually, who have purchased property and paid taxes. Without those tax dollars, Ag Trust will not have any money to purchase anything. My only voice on that is we should somehow make it very clear, or as clear as we can, to new comers to the town when they pay these taxes, how those monies are going to be used and for what purpose. That's all.
So I want to be clear, 2/3 of all the property that the Ag Trust has protected is currently owned by the owners of the property, and taxes are being paid on those 2/3 of all the acreage. We own outright 1/3, about 770 acres. And on those acres, I'm not quite sure your question, because the Ag Trust is not funded from property taxes. It's funded from a transfer
Right,
tax.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I buy a house, which we just did 6 years ago,
Yeah.
dollars were transferred. So I would like to see as a buyer how that money is going to be used.
Yes.
That's all. Because
Okay.
then I will make a decision whether I want to buy a little Compton or Tiverton.
Okay.
For example.
So two things I'd say to that. One is we're in the process of revising the form that you would fill out as a purchaser of property. And on that form, it will more clearly state the purpose of the taxes being paid through the transfer tax and where those taxes.
Right.
The other thing I'll just mention is that one of the things we were asked to do is to report to the town council on a frequent basis how we are managing the properties that we buy. So for instance, we listed 4 properties that we bought in the past year, and we said to the public and to the town council how we would manage each of those 4 properties for recreation, for agriculture, and so on. So this is all, your point is very well taken, and this is all an effort to just provide transparency, but more than provide transparency, the public has a right to understand and to know what we've been doing.
And what they buy.
Yeah, with their money.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Time,
Yeah, Gary.
would you have any problem coming back maybe the 1st of June or 1st of July and give us another update of how you're coming with some of it?
I would be delighted to. And again, in my mind, I'd like this to be a quarterly occurrence.
That would be great. Quarterly would be the 1st of June. That'd be March.
I just want to caution folks, the gestation period for these transactions are quite long. So,
Except for the Anarumo one.
so it'll take some time to turn the battleship in the bathtub,
Right.
but I think we're on our way. So
Very good. Thanks, Don.
All right, so let's put the pedal down on this meeting. All right, here we go. I will entertain a approval for the minutes.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Because I can't write that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Department head reports. Does anyone like to take one out?
I have one that I'd like,
I move that we place all 6 on file.
I have a second.
I have one
Okay.
I'd like to take,
And we're on the discussion. Would you like to take one out?
I would like to take one out.
Talbot, which one?
Getting used to the process here. Sorry about that.
Which one?
Department Head 6, Town Administrator Tony's report.
Okay, thank
Take out, please.
All right. Please.
Take it out, or do you just want to discuss it?
So I guess I want to discuss an item on his.
Go
report.
ahead.
So I'm just discussing it. Okay, I don't know the difference.
You don't need to take it out. You're just gonna discuss it.
Go ahead.
I would like to discuss it. So Tony, thank you for your great report. I just wanted to bring attention to the second page, the item banking institutions. I wanted to give the council this update and also the folks here today and watching at home that I am happy to say that since December, Patrick and I have been working closely with Tony and our finance director, Amy. And our goals have been to conduct a thorough review of all of our existing bank accounts, consolidating redundant and inactive accounts, improving cash management practices, increasing interest earnings, strengthening our relationship with our local community bank, Bay Coast Bank, and streamlining the work of our finance department. The first step in that direction was to open a new money market savings account at Bay Coast that earns 4% interest. We moved a significant sum to that account that had been previously in a non-interest bearing account. And we did that at the beginning of February. And by the end of the month, we'd earned $6,023 in interest in that first short month. And I just wanted to thank Tony so much for his cooperation and hard work on that amidst all the other things that Tony does all the time. And Amy and Patrick for partnering with me on that, and to Bay Coast for their partnership. So share that out.
So that's good news. We're trying to get, trying to make some money here for you. So thank you for everybody that was. I had the motion on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm not even gonna, it's just too late. Okay. You'll get to, you can talk at some point. Business one, recommendation received from the Beta Group Inc. to award bid number 2024-02 road resurfacing project, Pawtucket Hot Mix Asphalt Inc. in the amount of $1,374,473. And for my memory, we're going to be paving Townway, John Sisson, John Dye, Amy Hart, Taylor's Lane. Is that the 5?
Amy Hart entrance.
Just the entrance, so you can speed into the dump, no problem now. He's paved.
Motion to allow that to go forward.
I will second it. Would you like to comment? You can speak now.
Just refer to me and the town,
Motion to
director.
the correct administrator for action.
I'll second it.
You're not awarding it?
Yes,
Award, but he wants.
right. Refer it to, right.
Council is awarding and referring it to the.
That's what I heard. I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes. Thank you. Okay. Was this to update of the septic system loan program established for the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, Tony?
Yes, in fact, I've been in contact with Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, and I learned that we also have to file an application with DEM, and I've been in contact with DEM as well. So I'm following up tomorrow on both ends.
Solicitor, would you like to comment at all on this?
It's going right along. That's the process. This isn't a situation where it's a question of whether or not it's going to be approved. It's just a question, as Tony said, of getting through the process. DEM and the Infrastructure Bank, that should happen. I don't think it's going
Very expeditiously.
to be long at all.
Am I right? It's $10,000 with a 1% loan. Is that the number? If it's higher than that,
Yes.
they're right. So when we finally get this thing done, people can use $10,000 toward their old
Replacing
their system.
Well, we've spent some money doing the on-site wastewater management plan, and obviously that has expedite thing. And as the solicitor mentioned, DEM is now waiting to approve it. We just need to file an application with them now as a follow-up.
They're almost there.
Yes, we are.
Thank you. Any questions on it? 3, receive and discuss final comprehensive needs assessment reports with St. A Realty advisors for 30 and 32 Commons. This is where we're going to talk about the fire barn and Oddfellows. There's a comprehensive needs assessment here. We're gonna go through just some pictures, make a comment, and we'll open it up to speak. Do we have some pictures on the slide? Yeah. These are just pictures of the buildings that were taken in the comprehensive needs assessment.
Your fire barn.
Shingles that are coming off your exterior walls. That's your fire barn. There's no sheathing on this side here. I think that's the east side, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, east believe would be the word for that. And rod, go ahead. You can see broken windows, 8-seater shingles, deteriorated trim boards, okay. Vinyl casement windows that are, just have zip line on them. The windows obviously are, oh, real quick. Do we have the bathroom? We could make it quick, go ahead.
Sure.
The inside kitchen is obviously dilapidated. Lounge, pretty ugly in there. Ceilings, I wouldn't say in great shape.
That's it for that.
Okay, so that is the fire barn. And the Otto's Hall, obviously. Region north, south, and east and west. Deteriorating parting southeast corner. Roof line deflection. As you can see, the roof. Front stairways, do we need to talk about that? Not really, they're not great. Okay, that was quick. There were 3 other ones on there.
Okay,
That's okay.
I'll go back to it.
It's back. No, those are the stairs. I'm sorry. Okay, that was good. Now we wasted time. Rear stairs, not great. Concrete landing, awful. Age wood decking. Okay. Rear entry door, second floor dummy door. Main entry door does not close. Obviously the cedar sheet, clapboard not great. Shutters damaged. So that was what we've done for the needs assessment. So that came in, we have it here if anyone needs it. That came in with, if you look at what we're putting on the top financial meeting for option 2, a bond for $1.5 million to repair these 2 buildings, to bring them up for the use they should have. So obviously, no one wants to be in this situation. We're in this situation together. It's been decades of neglect of these buildings, and now it's time to pay the piper somehow. So here we are. Option 2, a bond for 1.5 million. The cost after the debt services will be 1.849 million, 1,849. If you add in the 20-year combined life and the maintenance, which we did in this report, that's another $313,593 for a total of $2,163,393 to bring these buildings back up to where we can put the lights on and use them to take care of the fire codes. There'll be no senior center in option 2. They'll just be what you see now, but fixed. So if there's any questions on any of the construction or this needs assessment, that would be a good time.
Why won't there be a senior gathering place?
Well, there would be,
Use the downstairs at the Oddfellows, but they'd have to share it,
it wouldn't be a dedicated senior center.
You're gonna finish the fire bond, what about there?
Fire barns, and the price to do the fire barn is just to continue it as a garage.
There's no,
Just to get it up.
so insulation in the fire barn.
I mean, these figures you're talking about, we could tear them down and build new houses.
That's not what
Well, unfortunately, I think that's what happens when you defer maintenance. I mean, typically to maintain something, for every dollar in maintenance, studies show it's closer to $4 in repair and replace. So I think that's just what we're dealing with. It's outlined pretty clearly in the report. And I think he was fairly conservative with his estimates. They seem pretty fair to me from what I could tell.
Any other questions on a question? You got to run up there.
I like it that you do that.
Push the wires. Don't talk before you get up there. No one can hear you.
I was,
Your name,
oh, right, Abigail Brooks,
Abigail.
54 Taylor's Lane. I was impressed by the report, looked at it online, wondered why the community center wasn't included as a building, because we're having a conversation, really, it sounds like, and particularly this evening, about what's happening with those three buildings. And if we defer the maintenance on the community center, we're going to wind up with the same kind of problem we've got with the other buildings if we don't do the upkeep. So I'm just recommending that maybe we should consider having CNA do what they did for the other two buildings, so that we have an overall picture as we're actually talking about having some real deep dives into planning the use for these buildings coming forward.
Thank you. I will venture into option one that you'll see at the town financial meeting. That is to lease the buildings to church community housing. On a 99-year lease, renting, trying to explain to me that it's like renting your house is what we're going to do with church community housing. You had a house, you didn't take care of it, and it's a mess, and you can't afford it. We're going to rent it, and they're going to take care of it forever for 99 years. All the deferred maintenance is going to be done. So that's option one, and of course we can talk about it some more. That gives you a senior center on the Odd Fellows below, and a multi-purpose space in the fire barn. So I think, and I'm only one of five, it's our responsibility to give to the taxpayers an option that doesn't land on the taxpayers' back. So you have an option here on option one, where it's almost negligible what the taxpayers are going to pay to get their buildings fixed perfectly and stay fixed perfectly for 99 years, renting them out. And the second option is it is on the taxpayers' back. So it's whatever the town wants to do. I look forward to discussing it now till May 20th. So if there's any questions tonight that we can answer, I'm happy to do that.
I have an add-on to that, if that's okay.
Sure.
So especially in view of all the people that are here tonight, clearly interested in the subject, and I'm glad to see it. And my guess is that you haven't, I know you haven't been here for everything, but I don't know if you've been watching them all at home. I just want to clarify that this isn't happening in a smoke-filled room, these conversations or this concept development of these two options. And Zach earlier said that not one person has it all figured out, and I couldn't agree more. I'm no expert. I'm not even an architect like Zach, but that's why we consult with experts. And I just wanted to be clear that we have spoken with a lot of experts and a lot of stakeholders. And I did a quick list of who I could remember, and I'm going to suffer through it. Little Compton Fire Department Chief Petrin, Sergeant Watts, Rhode Island State Fire Marshal Board, Ray Gomes, Building and Fire Code Consultant, Pat Drum, Anchor Fire Protection, designing and engineering a sprinkler system, David Demecki, architect, Melissa Hutchinson, architect to provide a feasibility study, Christian Belden, executive director of Church Community Housing, Stephanie Booker, development director, Church Community Housing, Keith Hamilton, Portsmouth Town Council president. We consulted with Portsmouth because their project was an inspiration for our option one here. They did something very similar. Richard Rayner, the Portsmouth Town administrator, Michelle McGaw, district representative, Little Compton and Portsmouth, Chris Osborne, the Wilbur McMahon School Water Department, Bob Johnson, the president of Effluential Technologies, does septic monitoring, Bill Smith, the president of Civil Engineering Concepts, who gave us a water and septic report, David Wardell of Secondit Plumbing regarding water usage, Pat Bowen, the chair of the Little Compton Housing Trust, Amy Mooney, Little Compton Community Center, Pamela Coward, director of Senior Services, Carolyn Wilkie Wardell, senior community member, Marjorie O'Toole, LC Historical Society and Historic Preservation Advisory Committee. And then we also spoke with all the stakeholders that I could find that use the building, namely Heather Helger, LC Makers, Lori Doherty, Secondit PTO, Walter Elwell, Odd Fellows, Anne Grange, John Lawson, Odd Fellows, Mike Seeger, Grandmaster, Odd Fellows, Rhode Island, Mike Rocha, GOP, Bert Cretion, American Legion, and Bob Harvey, Boy Scouts.
Is that all in one day?
No, that was a lot of days. That was a lot of time. So thank you for listening. And I just want to clarify, clearly we've spoken to a lot of people. If option one passes, it may or may not, but if it does, the first order of business is to establish an advisory council of stakeholders. We're not doing that now because all we have is this idea to put forward to the voters. Do you guys want to go down this road or not? If the voters decide we're going down the road, the first thing we do is an advisory council. So just want to clarify that.
It's an important point to clarify that there'll be stakeholders from Little Compton that will be dealing with church community housing.
The architects, yeah.
And
Yeah,
engineers on what exactly Little Compton wants in those two buildings.
Yeah, really, it's just a concept that we have. So some of you have seen Melissa Hutchinson's drawings. Those were literally a feasibility study. Is it feasible? Could we put a couple of units of housing into these buildings for seniors? Could we fit a senior center in? How could we do it? So that was feasibility to give us an idea if it's possible. And putting something forward is hard. And Zach also said having an actual plan is divisive, and he's right about that too. So we don't actually have a plan. We have a concept of a plan, and it's our job to do a good job clarifying, communicating, and hopefully getting everybody feeling well informed before the vote at the FTM.
Anyone on the council?
The only thing I've said already is that I think your ambition is great, Victoria. I'm still not on board with giving those buildings away. The town has to. We just did a great job. I can show you, well, I can't show you, but there was pictures of the town hall, same exact way as those buildings. Look how nice it is now. And the town paid for that with ARPA funds, but with some town funds too. My main concern is you say it's going to be for the seniors. Okay, it's going to be for seniors, but not necessarily our seniors that we're trying to help. We're trying to help the seniors of this town, not seniors from Boston, not seniors from New York, not seniors from Newport, not seniors from Tiverton, seniors from this town. And you can't guarantee that those 4 apartments over there are going to be seniors from Little Compton. And you say, well, we'll have a list. Church community is not going to use a list. They're going to see the list that they have. They're going to say, this one's going there, this one's going there, this one's going there, and this one's going there. And then we're going to have 4 buildings that possibly are going to be occupied by people not from Little Compton. And I don't want to see that. If you can tell me those 4 buildings are going to be occupied by residents of Little Compton, I'll be more than happy to give it a better look. But until you can tell me that, I'm against it.
But I would say 2 things. And one is, first of all, we can't exclude because they're using grant monies. As you very well know, you can't discriminate against someone from Fall River or Newport or anywhere else.
Right.
Secondly, we've had this conversation with Christian Belden, who's done this on a lot of different locations. I could give you a list of all the different facilities that he's done. And he said, typically the list it's all local and you might get a few sprinkled in that are not. And also there's the ability to have a ranking system. So with only 4 units and some kind of ranking system, I personally think the odds are very good. They would be people in this community. And frankly, there are people who are living now in Tiverton and Fall River who've had to move out of this community because they couldn't afford to stay here. So I would say that there's a possibility somebody might be happy to come back, and I would welcome that. And solicitor, could you give clarity on the giving away versus leasing? Could you explain what the actual relationship would be?
Well, this isn't the analogy I would use would not be residential lease, more like a commercial lease. So what would happen here is and Don used the term fee. The fee for the building, fee for the land would
Could
stay
you
with.
say it loud this way so people can hear? There's a lot of people who might want to understand this difference.
You may have heard Mr. McNaught say that using the term fee. That's a legal term. That means a title to the land in the building would stay with the town. It would be a lease with church community. That would be for 99 years. And that would give them the ability to do a few things. Number one, they could sublease. So that means that whoever goes in there wouldn't be leasing from the town. They'd be leasing from church community that holds the lease with the town. That's the first thing. The second thing is the lease would say that the property would be managed by church community. So not only wouldn't they be a lessee, it'd also be the property manager. And that's, I think, what their MOU with Portsmouth is.
And that, am I right in understanding that would be essentially for half of both buildings, right? If the second floor of the Oddfellows, say, was 2 units, and the downstairs was a senior center, they would have the control of the second floor and we would maintain control of the first floor.
You can lease out portions of the building, yeah.
So it would be about half of that building, and then the same thing over at the other. It would be roughly half for community space and the other half for two residential units or something.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, I have, come on up, Mr. Wardell.
Hi, good evening, Russell Wardell. Back in the 1980s, the Oddfellows entered an agreement with the town. The Oddfellows gave the Oddfellows Hall to the town. The Oddfellows kept the upstairs of the building for meetings. Now I'm understanding that they're talking about using affordable housing for the upstairs of the buildings. Well, what's going to happen to the Oddfellows? I mean, we're still, I'm one of the Oddfellows.
I know you are.
So that's why I'm like to.
And that's why we talked to the Grand Master Oddfellow. We've talked to 3 or 4. I think we even talked to your secretary, John Lawson.
Right.
There's more people on the list. I didn't even give you.
But
I think we talked to 4 different ones about that. And we offered to update the agreement. And
as long as the Oddfellows had the charter, which we agreed to in the 80s, we would still have use of the upstairs of the hall. And now you're talking about affordable housing for up there.
right. Solicitor, you reviewed that agreement about their having continued use of a space. You want to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's being contemplated here is there have to be an accommodation with the Oddfellows.
Okay.
There's just no doubt about that.
Right, exactly.
And it's not so much a question of the exact location.
Right.
But, you know, I don't want you to think you're going to be the odd man out.
Right. Right.
Take that back.
Haven't been fleshed out.
Right, exactly. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Russell.
My name is Aras Sadanians. I live on 24 Taylor's Lane. I'm the chair of the Preservation Advisory Committee, but I'm speaking now as a citizen, not as part of the committee. If I may start with this quick comment about commons. As we all know, we have the most beautiful commons in Rhode Island. Out of 39 towns and cities in Rhode Island, there are only 2 commons. And the other one is in Bristol. We are much better than that in terms of the commons. We really are.
All right, can you direct it to me, please?
I'd be happy to.
Council.
So it's a very unique structure and architectural heritage we have. As you probably remember, I came here a year ago or so.
I recall.
That should have a historic district. I'm not here pleading that again, but I'm echoing what Amy said earlier. If we did have that, of course, there would be a lot more funds available to renovate these buildings, all of them actually. So I think we have a responsibility, at least I feel I have a responsibility as a citizen of this town to preserve the commons the best way we can. I am thrilled to hear that the town council is very interested in taking steps to renovate because it really looks like hell. It doesn't look good currently. The Oddfellows and the barn, they need to be renovated. There isn't one way to do it. There's probably 29 different ways to do it, and we can come and list within 5 minutes what those 29 ways are. But we only heard 2 of them, and a third one from Amy. Here is my thinking about it. I love to see it renovated. I will do whatever I can as a citizen, perhaps even write some small checks, which I offered. Not that big, really, just 3 digits. Right? But there are many ways to do that. But the commons needs to be preserved because commons serves 3,589 people as of 2022. If we were to transfer the land by lease, as you described, we're really not in control for 99 years. And I'm certain, as you are, that's forever because we all be gone somewhere else. We're not going to be here. What are we going to leave to our children and grandchildren? We're not in control of that land or that property. The details I leave it to you to describe between land and property. Once you have
an entity, two wonderful buildings. How are we going to use them? Isn't the town common a place where we all gather? We hear concerts, parades, run, children play. I really thought about this quite a bit over the last few days. There are so many opportunities, particularly hearing Amy's presentation. I was very touched and interested in that. So much more we can do for the town. I have heard through several meetings the importance of inviting young families in. If one was to build or structure within so-called community campus a youth center, if I was 36 years old and I had 3 children and I'm going to move to Little Compton, I'm a lot more likely to move to Little Compton because there's a youth center and a cultural center versus, forgive me, I'm using slang, and I'm 65 years old, I can do that, and nursing home. I'm really not interested in that. Now, allow me to say this to someone who is over 65, I won't give you the specifics. I am really not interested if the town is going to offer me to live next to a basketball court.
Yeah, so, all right, I'm trying to get this meeting going. I understand you don't like option one. That's great. Anything else you want to add?
Yes, I'd like to add that I think we should have a citizens group because this is about everybody. We should have a citizens group to come and propose something to town council before any other steps are taken. There are plenty of people who are interested.
Thank you.
in having innovative ideas. Thank you for your.
Anyone else? Larry? How about this young lady first, Larry? Let's go ladies before gentlemen.
I have a couple of concerns. My first concern is that when you talk about a 99-year lease with an organization that is not local, we are talking about this town losing control of over those 2 properties. We had a recent incident over Town Landing where we took funds and we have lost control of Town Landing in a way that was not foreseen at the time. And I don't think we need to duplicate that. Second instance is down at the Point when, Dick Rogers' family sold that, the town didn't buy it. It has been lost to many of the townspeople. And I think that's a shame. And I think that this is a similar situation where the town is going to lose control over a big part of the Commons real estate. That's one thing. Victoria and I, we're good friends, but when you mentioned all of those people that you spoke with, not all of those people you spoke with agree with this plan. So I just want to clear that up, that many of the stakeholders in this community of social service, nonprofit agencies have been discussing this, and we're not in favor of it.
I didn't mean to imply that everyone agreed. I just was talking to all the people we can see.
Yeah, so, and other people have been talking too. And like the first speaker said, when, with the big plan, nobody's writing this. And, we need to come together and have a common goal. When you talk about want to have a community group meet after this is approved, why wait? Why not have this group meet now and figure out what we want to do, what the community wants to do with that property? And I think there are other funds like Amy spoke about that we can use. Church community isn't the be all and end all of this solution. And I understand that there are constraints and you're concerned about the fire codes and the money and where's that money going to come from. But we will find a way. If you build it, they will come. And I just think that there are other ways to skin this cat, and we just need to come together before it goes before all this money gets voted on. We need to come up with a plan that the town is behind, because this is dividing the town, and I don't want to see that happen.
What is your name, ma'am? You state your name.
Donna Pilkington.
So Donna,
Yeah,
I appreciate that. Thank you. It's unfortunate we're in this position, but we are.
it is.
Okay, for decades of neglect. So we try to figure out a way where it's not going to be on the taxpayer's back to pay for it. So we came up with that. So that's one. That doesn't mean it has to be voted. The town will vote for that. I feel it's our job to say, listen, here's an option you can do, and it's not going to raise your taxes.
But Patrick,
And
coming up with other options
the other,
and not come with just one, because
the second option is that,
other options to this.
yeah,
And it doesn't have to all be like, hurry, hurry, hurry. I feel like this is a knee-jerk response to like years of,
so I just address that. We have an option too, that the taxpayers take on the burden of doing this building. And it kind of sits to me that for all these decades, nothing was done.
right.
All of a sudden, we find out a way we can do it without spending taxpayer money in a way that we can't spend taxpayer money. Now, all these ideas come out, and that's great. I want all the ideas to come out. Okay, I've told Amy Moody I like collaborating with her. She's creative, and so am I. So, we are here to collaborate. We're here, it's 3,600 people here. They're going to decide what they want to do.
So let's
That's democracy.
collaborate now, can this be put off and get some people together and kind of rework, these ideas?
I think we live in a democracy. We live in a democracy that will vote. And if the town doesn't want it, they'll vote it down. They could vote both down.
And then what happens?
We'll continue what we've been doing for decades, band-aiding and trying to get along to get along. That'll be the third option until another option comes up that is born.
I think Amy had an option where
I think so.
she thought,
I don't, I think Amy, and I've talked with Amy for hours, I think maybe. Amy has a vision.
right,
She doesn't have a plan. That this is a plan. We've done our research.
To make,
It's not,
overnight to make.
Yeah.
Have the authority to plan tonight, get enthusiasm, there is any, but it's not my plan. But
okay. Well, he said it was your plan.
Can I
didn't
clarify that the urgency that's being perceived here is in large part driven by the fire?
Exactly.
So the clock is ticking on us. When are we going back to the state?
April, next month.
We have to go back with a plan. We're going to go back and say we have 2 plans that are going to the voters and hope that they're okay with that and wait for our FTM. And then we'll let them know the results of that. So
So when does this go to the
fire marshal,
when does,
financial town meeting.
when is that?
May 20th
So you have to go back to the fire people
in April,
for the town meeting,
because they want to know what our plan is.
and we don't have one.
We do have.
We have concepts that we
Have
can vote on.
plan for a plan,
Yeah.
but not a plan. And so if that gets voted down at the town meeting, that May meeting, we're back to square one.
say that in theory, for the state fire board, that one of the options would be to cut down the top floor while still the first floor.
That's who we are now.
Well, that's how it is now. And we don't know if they'll let us do that indefinitely. That's a temporary agreement that they've made for us so we can continue to use the first floor. But I don't know when we go back and say, yeah, we'll just keep it closed. They might not like that. So we don't know.
Can I ask a question?
I've got this gentleman here's next. Larry's next. And then you, sir. Oh, Larry's next. Larry, come on.
Oh, Larry shut me down.
Larry's up. Larry's up.
He was waiting for Donna. Yeah.
He was away.
he's already had his.
Larry Anderson, for Winslow Road. I just have a couple of random questions and points. With regard to the ownership model, the lease of a town property. Can someone explain to me what the current arrangement is for the ownership and lease of the community center?
I usually carry the lease around in my back pocket. I think we're down to what, Amy, 17 years, 13 years? A 50-year lease?
Yeah, so, 99, we signed a lease in 1993, it was a 50-year lease. And so we currently have 17 years left.
So the use is different, but the model is the same. The town owns the property, subject to an agreement, which has terms and conditions. If certain things happen, as I understand it, the principle is the same that's being contemplated.
Yes.
And so there would be terms and conditions in a lease if there were a change of use or other contingencies that would be anticipated in an agreement. So that the idea of control that it would turn into something else, the town would still retain some rights under such a lease, presumably.
Yes.
So that's my first point. The other concern I have is in response to Gary's concerns about people, the only users. This is just a personal thing. First of all, I'm a senior, so I could speak to I have a right to speak to the question of where seniors live. But our challenge in Little Compton is that we have basically in a free market of real estate, we don't have anything to say. We don't care a bit about who lives here, as long as they've got the money to live here. Anybody can live here. That's how it works. I'm not from here originally, but I lived here. My wife, incidentally, was born in Fall River. So when she hears people say people in Fall River might not be able to live here, some people take that personally. So that the purpose that's proposed, whether it's agreed on or not by voters, is another question. But both at the young end and the old end, many of us know many older people who have had to leave town, single people, widows and widowers, because there are no options here that are affordable. The town, that the Commons Foundation is taking an approach, the town is trying to deal with affordable housing, but if the town, which is in a situation in this case to essentially owns the land, we can subsidize part of the cost and provide some opportunities for some people who likely to be from Little Compton, or who, when they live here, will become from Little Compton, like all the rest of us come here from some other places. So there's no way to define who our people are. That's just. I don't buy that a bit. So I had a third point I've forgotten. It was a good
All right, Mr. Miller, Mr. Miller. You have to come up so the audience can hear you on the YouTube.
So Larry, what I meant was residents, okay? If that clarifies that, I think if the town's gonna go down this road, I think it would be appropriate that Little Compton residents get to utilize the building, because generally when church community goes forward with one of these, they buy the property, okay? They buy it, generally a foreclosed property. They buy it, they rehab it, and then they let somebody in it, okay? We're actually saying, okay, you fix this building up and you can use it for 99 years. You get the rent. They're going to be recuperating the funds that they've put in there, okay? That was what my point, Larry. It's not about you or us or anybody else, residents. Maybe I misspoke. It's what I meant.
Mr. Miller? Yeah, someone.
So I just had a question on the second
Option two?
option two.
All right.
Is that a prescriptive bond? Does it have a laundry list of items that are accompanying that? Or is it just a bond that's similar to Victoria's solution, that if the bond was approved, those funds would be used for Oddfellows Hall? I'm going to call it the First House Fire Barn. Could a community group come together and come up with the best prescriptive use for those bond funds, or is it locked in? Because it could be considered as a seed grant or other funds that could be built upon.
I think I understand your question. I know you want to say something, Carol. Is the warrant language constricted to the fire barn and Oddfellows that's on the warrant?
Yes, I believe so.
Yes.
30 and 32 comments,
Yeah.
but it doesn't speak to,
Not like we're going to put siding up and replace windows,
it's just that
renovate the front elevation or whatever might be.
it's just authorization to seek a bond.
So with the creation of an advisory group and how to use those bond funds, if they were to be appropriated through a bond measure, they could in fact be a magnet for attracting other funds and interests that could meld the development of the.
So I see where you're going. Solicitor, you have a comment?
You're going to be limited to how the funds can be used.
Absolutely.
By two things, not only what's in the warrant and what's voted, you're also going to have to get General Assembly approval. And finally, you gotta make sure that you don't violate bond covenants.
But it wouldn't preclude those bonds being used within the warrant, but also, like I see, an interest wide to add funds to that purpose. Whether
By outside interests.
side interest, communal interests, wealthy neighbors in the community, people who want to tack on grants from outside funding resources, because there are a lot of grants that are available for correctly purposed historic structures.
It's interesting.
The bond, your bond covenants would not prevent that.
That's all.
Thank you. Hand in the back, come on up. I didn't see your hand. Put your hand up quicker than you.
It's just,
You can't hear me. Go ahead up. Abigail, you're next.
My name is Brandon Pinio. I didn't think I was going to get up and speak this evening, but I'm concerned. I think it's fair to say, given the discussions tonight, that we value our seniors tremendously in this town. And we value philanthropy in this town for causes and whatnot. If I may, I have a question for Ms. Talbot. You had a long list of individuals whom you spoke with in regard to Oddfellows Hall. I come from a long line of Oddfellows family.
Yeah.
And that's in more way than one. It's the organization, and I'm a bit odd. But nevertheless, I'm pretty familiar with their literature. I've got a lot of their books and that kind of stuff. I'm concerned that we have a group of elders in this town, still Oddfellows. And I'm concerned that it sounded as if a few minutes ago that they may be evicted. Is that going to be the case?
Yeah.
So provided that these Oddfellows are incorporated and still Oddfellows and part of the group, when you spoke with the head lodge, the overseeing lodge, was there any indication that there would be some other place that they would be moved to?
I told them that we were in discussions about what was happening with the building, that they had their agreement in. They understood that. I said, whatever we do, we're going to make some provision for space for the Oddfellows going forward. I said that we would like, per my conversation with the solicitor, that we would like to update our agreement with them because it's quite old. I don't remember what was the 80s or something.
Well, it's from the 80s. They gave it to the town, but with the provision that as long as the Oddfellows as an organization
I understand.
members, that they would be in perpetuity in that space.
Yeah, and so the Grand Master, I forget, said that, he was open to that and that they would be in touch with somebody who could talk to us more about that. They never got in touch. It's a little hard to get in touch with Oddfellows because
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and it can be hard to reach. But I did speak to 3 in town and 1 in Bristol and 1 somewhere else, and I haven't heard back. But
I hope you can appreciate my concern this evening. We have individuals, elders, Oddfellows, without ever being open about it, perform an awful lot of philanthropy under the table.
I absolutely value and respect
And
organization.
they do things that most of the townspeople would have no clue the value of. And to see those people deposed out of that space.
No deposed.
Travesty, an absolute travesty. And I hope the council takes that into consideration. Very concerned about that.
Thank you. Abigail? I'm gonna spat over that fire.
I need to introduce myself again.
No.
You may have already answered this question, but I just wanted to read the language. It's in the article to respond to what Zach was asking, because it does say specifically to authorize the town council to borrow monies not to exceed $1,500,000 for use in the execution of the town's capital improvement plan, including but not limited to the following project: renovation of 30 and 32 commons for necessary repairs due to deferred maintenance. So it sounds like it's open-ended in a sense, not restricted just to those 2 buildings.
Yeah, I would acquiesce to the solicitor on your, what you think that says.
well, it says including but not limited to, but the fact that they're mentioned in that can be cleaned up when it goes to the General Assembly.
So if all the funds weren't used on 30 and 32, we could use some funds to do some work at the community center then.
Correct.
Okay.
Amy Moody?
Hi, thank you. I first wanted to really thank Abigail for your comment earlier about including the community center, and I do acknowledge that there has been some inclusivity. To respond to your concern, what I think is your concern, we have had a building inspection done in, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I think it was spring of 2023, and there were 33 deficiencies found. Some were very small, like a leaky faucet. Some were roof, windows, siding, elevator, substantial, and a foundation issue on the front left, if I recall. So we do have some substantial needs to address, and I have, I'm hopeful that the town council will take me up on a few offers to talk about our lease and how we can start to address those needs before our building falls into a similar state of disrepair. We want to avoid that. So
forward to it.
Thank you. Me too. My next question or statement, I'm not really sure, to be honest with you, is I'm clearly a pie in the sky type of gal, for better or for worse, and you guys have learned that to some extent by now. If this plan for 30 and 32 Commons does happen, does that mean that the community center in theory can't build an annex to help expand our footprint? Because there's a senior in the room who I won't point out, but they can identify themselves, who is currently on our wait list for lunch. That person is pretty upset and peeved, rightfully so, that he is on the wait list. And so in a part of our vision is if we have this annex connecting 32 and 34, much like here, we could expand our kitchen within our current footprint, move the office to that annex. But if that building gets leased, I don't know. I don't know what is that still possible, I guess is my question.
If I can guess, I don't actually know, but I mean, if you're talking about the annex that was in Zach's presentation that wasn't shared publicly, the one that I saw, I don't know that it would preclude that necessarily. I don't think so. I think, historical folks might have something to say about buildings, whatever. It's not my department. And I don't think it would preclude the community center for thinking about moving out the back and getting some more space that way or finding some other creative solutions. I don't see why it would preclude anything for the community center.
And do you, solicitor, have any opinion about if a building next to us is leased for a long term and we wanted to connect to it?
I'm not able to make give a legal opinion.
Okay.
Because I'm not familiar enough with the condition on the site. But is it impossible from a legal standpoint?
Okay.
I just can't say whether or not he can do it without taking a look at the site plan.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And then another just, again, comment, I guess. In my questions before, albeit hypothetical and meant to spark conversation, I do have concern about the noise that our building creates. And though this might be an extreme, it is a recent series of events that the vineyard was shut down from making noise in short. That's, my interpretation, how I'm going to put it out here. Is there a potential that our programs and operations could be negatively impacted if we had a neighbor who was dissatisfied with the way that our building is operated? And while the summer concert series, if you come, I think you agree, it might be fun. It's something to do on the summer night that's free and cheap or what have you. But I'm more concerned about the childcare. This past summer, we made a conscious effort to move the children from the right side of the building to the left side of the building, in between the community center and the Odd Fellows Hall, because we were concerned about the level of noise for the staff in the finance office. And so is that something that we, the community center, should be concerned about?
Well, it's gonna, this list can, the church community have control over that? I mean, we have our entertainment license, so obviously we'll have control, but won't it be church community be the one that's gonna tell those residents, you know, you're a bad actor, you gotta straighten out.
That's in the first instance. I think your concern isn't so much, the potential tenants. As a tenant, they're complaining about you.
Yeah.
So, it's a sign of a misspent practice, but I'm very familiar with the issue. That sounds in nuisance law. In this situation, because you're there first and they come second, the doctrine is called coming to the nuisance. In other words, they're showing up. And it's not like you came in and wrecked what they had.
Got it.
They're gonna go in, they're gonna know there's a community center next to them, there's gonna be noise.
Okay.
And that negates their ability to complain about things of that nature.
Helps me feel much more reassured. Thank you.
Remember that, solicitor, because you might be talking about that.
Mr. Simmons and I have been discussing something similar to that. On it, it's a whole body of.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? So it's March 6th. Oh, there you go, Mr. Focarelli.
I have a couple questions. First question is, have you actually entered into an agreement with Church Community?
We haven't. So the vote at the town financial meeting of option one was to approve, then we would enter into it.
So is that agreement included in the warrant?
Is that agreement included in the warrant? Is it going to be, listener?
No.
So wouldn't it be fair for the voters to see the whole agreement so that they would democratically be able to make a choice between? So that's one suggestion I have. And so the terms of the lease, is that public record at the moment?
That's in the MOU, right? That would be in the MOU, the terms of lease.
Yes.
So it's currently an MOU.
No, there's nothing signed.
Right, but I mean, what the voters are voting on is an MOU with Church Community?
Actually, what the voters are voting on is to give the council authorization to enter into an MOU.
What happens if that MOU falls apart? What's the?
I broached this subject. I forget who it was with. If the voters do vote up option one, you tell me if I'm wrong.
Right.
And say, okay, we can enter into that. So we drafted MOU. You have one probably ready to go. Hopper, we make an advisory committee of the town and they would go over that MOU. Is that how it would work?
Yeah. I think I understand.
So what I'm saying is that's not a guarantee. If the voters vote for option one, it's not a lockdown that is going to take place. Let's say there's a groundswell, pardon the pun, of voter appetite to enter into option one. At the moment, it's a promissory, correct?
All right. So the question that I have, and I had this question, I don't know if I asked you, if it gets voted and approved on option one, can it still fall apart?
Yes.
Yes, it can still fall apart.
That's my question.
It might be that the parties can't come to terms.
Correct. So then will you look for another partner or is it just this is a one-shot deal? So the only option that we have other than the bond is with this one specific organization. Is that correct?
I'm going to say yes.
That's correct.
And the MOU that Tony has reviewed, if you don't mind me speaking for you, Tony, there, Church Community shared their MOU that they had with the town of Portsmouth. Again, this is kind of.
The town of Portsmouth. I'm not concerned with Portsmouth.
No, but that's the model for the MOU,
right?
Language of 99-year lease. And so that let me finish, Tony, that's what he reviewed as a template, if you will.
Right.
I haven't gotten any further than that. Tony's looked at it and that's about as far as we've gotten.
I'm concerned that this is Little Compton. As you know, we're not like anybody else and templates don't really apply.
It's a start.
Actually, I have some concern.
So
I sent an email out saying, these are my concerns. They might be addressed.
But what my concern is that I want the voters to be able to, when they look at the warrant, be able to understand the terms of the MOU.
Tony, can we have the MOU resolved before FTM and include that?
Absolutely.
Good idea.
It's my understanding we're going to send out a mailer also to explain option one and two. Right. And probably include that.
Explaining option 102, as it's been explained to me, does not include the terms of the MOU.
Yeah, so
I
we'll,
think it's a good point. Thank you.
yeah, we'll include that.
That's good.
Mr. Carter. I thought you had enough of these meetings. I guess you are.
My name is Chris Carter. I live in town. This 99-year lease, I have a lot of concerns about the fact that these are properties that are owned by the taxpayers of this town that would be foregone of any public use under a lease term. Is there any consideration of taking that lease and structuring it so that the town would have a buyout over a 25, 50, 75-year period should the town have a need for those structures to come back into municipal use? I just think a 99-year lease is, the town would be on the hook of having to pay them back something, but I think that's something you should consider so that you're not bound to a extremely long term.
Let me feel that as I know it on March 6th. I think you said that the town won't have public access in there. We will in both buildings. We'll have a senior center.
I haven't got to that part of my question yet, but
We'll have a multi-purpose area in the fire barn. And I talked with Christian Belden today, and it's a 99-year lease. Dead stop.
there's no wiggle room at all.
Not in his mind.
So my second question is, to your point of the town will have some access into those structures.
It's probably half of the building.
The town gonna be on the hook and obligated to pay for some of those capital improvements, the town's use of those structures.
Senior center.
I didn't say senior center. I didn't.
That's one of the.
Not at all. I'm worried about as a taxpayer. Half of these buildings are gonna be owned by the town or be utilized by the town. If there are gonna be capital improvements to those, the town is on the hook to pay its share of those, not what community church is gonna be doing for the housing problem, regardless of what it's used for.
Church community has said that they would leverage community development block grants for the senior center because those are available to create a senior center.
But what if it's not a senior center? What if it's something else? What if it's, that's my issue. It's
We're trying to chase a lot of things, including a senior center, fire.
all the more reason I do think that we need much more public input into this besides putting two options on the table and saying, take it, leave it.
Appreciate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Chris, I did say at the last meeting that whatever the town's gonna keep, the inside of it, obviously, it's gonna have to be a capital improvement by the town. I don't think the church community is gonna say, okay, this part of the building, like a third of it or whatever we're gonna keep. Oh, we're gonna rehab that whole thing for you. I may be wrong.
Going to do the senior center portion. So all of the Odd Fellows building would be funded by them. The town would have control of the senior center.
There would still be a capital need on the town to have to come up with some monies to renovate or do whatever it needed.
Do the share.
Not a, if we lease it, we don't have the taxpayers don't have any expense at all. That's not the case.
Compared to 2.1 million in a 500 square foot piece in the fire barn.
I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to be clear because the way I understood it was the town would have no obligation if we went into a lease.
A minimal obligation.
Oh, okay, it is what it is.
An unknown obligation.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, that's okay.
My name's Mike Roach, Senior, I guess you can call me, but my question is, and you might have an answer for this already, but with those extra units, what is the thought about the extra parking that we're gonna need for those units?
So I'll go back to the parking study.
Let me finish my question.
Oh, I thought you were done.
No, I wasn't. So on my comment, I guess, first. But as it is now, I see a lot of these seniors struggling to get to have lunch at the senior center because there's no parking there. It's pretty congested there, especially on noon time. So my question is, I guess, what is the thought about the extra parking we're going to need to handle all the extra units?
So all the extra units will be 4. So there'll be 4 more spaces needed. And if I'm not mistaken, there's plans for parking in the plants off street.
Where about? Okay, where is that?
They're in the.
All right.
They're in here. They're in somewhere in there. In one of my packets.
So you think? I'm sorry, but do you think there'll be just with 4 extra units? There'll only be 4 extra cars?
That's the only one. Yeah, they'll allot one for every. That's the schematic that I saw. But again, the police chief has asked the state to do this study, and we're waiting for it.
All right. Thank you.
Parking.
Yeah.
We'll see how that works out, but I thank you anyway.
Sure. Anyone else? All right, thank you. New business one.
Don, I can't believe you're still here.
Request from the town clerk to update
There you go.
computer use policy. We now name information technology policy
Motion to approve.
to consider mandating the current training. I will make a motion to accept the now named information technology policy. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Request from administrator.
Second request on that about mandating the
Current trade.
the current training.
Did it say that on there?
I request.
Oh, I'm sorry. Policy and to consider mandating the current training.
Yeah.
Did I forget to read that?
Oh, no, you just didn't act on it.
You want two separate votes?
You want two separate?
Well, you only said you were accepting the information technology policy. You didn't say.
Okay, so I will retract my motion. Retract second.
Motion
It's already
to,
been voted on. Can you just handle the second?
Want to make a second motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we'll make a motion to mandate the current training of this new information technology policy.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Request for administrator for the council to ratify his actions to instruct the finance director to issue a check to its Influential Technologies as a down payment for an electrical panel needed for the wastewater treatment facility.
So moved.
Oh, that would be really.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Board of Licenses, request for St. Andrews by the Sea for a class F1 day retail beverage license on March 28th.
Motion to approve.
First comedy night fundraising event, Little Cost Community Center. I'll second. All in favor? Thank you. Applications. Letter. Request for Congregational Church to hold a summer fair.
Motion to allow the United Congregational Church to use the Commons for summer fair with all state and local ordinances adhered to and with the approval of our police chief.
Yeah, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Two, invitation from John P. McKinnon, principal of Wilmington School, to attend the MYP eighth grade community service project advocacy event on Thursday, March 27th at 10:30 in the Dave McGregor Gymnasium. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Place on file.
A second?
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution adopted by Portsmouth Town Council petitioning the Rhode Island General Assembly and Governor reinstate general revenue sharing to cities and towns. A, request from the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns for each municipality to adopt a similar resolution as was adopted by Portsmouth in 3.
Bob?
I move that we write a resolution that is precisely the same as the one from Portsmouth that the clerk and I can work at, and that we sign that in order to express that.
Yes, something over here.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yes, please go ahead.
In between the time that Portsmouth adopted their resolution, a bill was submitted in the General Assembly just for this. If you don't mind, I will forward you the resolution language that I think is appropriate to respond to this tomorrow to Carol.
Marvelous. I revise my motion to accept the offer of the solicitor to provide a draft resolution that we.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution adopted by the Westlake Town Council supporting House Bill H 5457. What do you say to that, Gary?
I say, what do you say on this one, solicitor? The new legislation coming for, nothing, I'll make a motion to approve.
Which one is that?
5, 4.
Communication for.
It's late.
What are you doing?
This one here.
Yeah.
Motion for item 4, and I have a question for you as to whether you agree that that's what we should do.
Oh, I have no
Increasing the hourly rate.
no real comment on this one, and I'll tell you why. The only thing that they're proposing to change is the amount of money that you get charged per hour for your search and retrieval. They're not proposing to change the dollar amount for copies.
Let's hear it, Gary.
And for our purposes in the town, it's very rare we charge for the search and retrieval. So I have no
Place on
comment,
file.
either way. Place on file. is fine.
Place on file.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. 5, request from a couple, Anna and Andrew, to use town landing September 6th for their wedding ceremony. God bless them.
To approve with all ordinances adhered to.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Request from the Westport Watershed Alliance for a single day entertainment license
it's on Little Compton property.
on Little Compton property.
It's
Motion?
It's a fundraiser and they only need an entertainment license. They have a band. And because it's a fundraiser, they're charging. Technically, they need a single day entertainment license.
Motion to approve a single day entertainment license for the Westport River Watershed Alliance.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution adopted by Burtville Town Council according to House Bill 2025 H371. I'm going to make a motion to put that on file.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent.
Motion to place consent calendar on file unless anybody wants to pull anything for discussion.
Second. In favor?
Aye.
Aye. Payment of bills.
Motion to pay the bills as presented.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
After you declared the meeting adjourned.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor?